So our grant programs, we have 3 different grant programs. The Small Change Grant Program is funded by the Home Depot Foundation. The awards range from as small as $100 all the way up to $5,000. That is an increased max from the way it's been in previous years, so that's an exciting opportunity. And this year we've also made the change to consider applications on a rolling basis. So you can submit those applications to me anytime, and that program is available to all of our jurisdictions. With that grant program, there is a matching requirement, a one-to-one match. So if you got a $5,000 grant, you would need to raise or contribute $5,000 worth, and the project would be a $10,000 project. Our next grant program is the Community Building Grant Program, also funded by the Home Depot Foundation. These awards range from $2,500 or $5,000, the small change size, to $50,000 is the maximum. These also all require a one-to-one match and are available only to the City of Atlanta and DeKalb County. Our largest grant program is the Legacy Grant Program funded by the Robert W. Woodruff Foundation. Awards range from $25,000 to $100,000 and a little bit more in very select cases. These grants are only available to parks within the City of Atlanta limits. And this year we have made the change that up to 1/3 of those dollars will not require a match. And those awards will all be made in community development impact areas, which are low and middle income neighborhoods as defined by HUD. So that's a federal designation. And then the rest of those awards will require a one-to-one match. And the awards that require match may also happen to be in the CDIA areas. It's not that only 2/3 of the dollars will be available to those areas. So that's a change to the program this year, a change that we are really excited about. And hopefully that is why there are some new faces here today. But if you have any questions, please let me know. When you get this PowerPoint, this is linked where you can see the announcement of this change in the supporter report, if you have any questions or want more information about that. Just so that you all are aware, this is a map of the community development impact areas within the City of Atlanta. They are in this orange. And you can see we've got MARTA lines and the interstates and all of that. Community development impact areas are defined as areas where over 51% or more of the residents make less than 80% of the area median income. So that's kind of convoluted, but basically it just means lower or middle income areas. And so we know, we have seen with the history of our grant program that matching requirement has really been a barrier for some of our neighborhoods, and a lot of neighborhoods that are really engaged with us and doing really good work for their parks. So we just wanted to make that change to remove a barrier to the program. So hopefully that is a positive change that you all are excited about, and we're really looking forward to implementing that change this year. Kayla, are you going to launch the poll so that we can sort of see? Yeah, so we're just interested out of everybody that's participating where you are. So the options are all of our jurisdictions, but if you're in Atlanta, you can look at this map and just do your best guess as to whether you're in one of these orange community development impact areas or not. So I'm going to stay on this slide for a minute so that y'all can see the orange. This map comes from the City of Atlanta GIS. You can overlay a bunch of different things. It's actually very cool. So when I send the meeting follow-up, I'll include that link. And when you're on this page, you can actually type in the name of your park and find out definitively whether you're in one of these areas or not, which will be helpful when filling out your letter of intent and application. And we'll provide instructions on that, don't worry. Kayla, have the majority of folks participated? Should we give it another minute or do we want to share? And again, thank you, Kayla, for doing all of this back-end technology that I would not be able to do successfully. So are you going to share, Kayla?
It is sharing.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Never mind.
okay, there it is. So biggest is City of Atlanta. That is not surprising. And a good chunk in the community development impact areas. And then a lot of you in DeKalb. So that is awesome. Really glad to see everybody represented here. All right. So getting into the meat of who is required and what you need to prepare and get all your ducks in a row to be able to apply for a grant this year. First things first, you have to be a Friends of the Park group. We want you guys to be plugged into Park Pride. We want you to have access to all of the resources that we provide. That includes grants, projects. Obviously that's on hold right now, but hopefully when the world gets back to normal, we can continue assisting with that. We provide tools. We help you guys engage your community, a whole suite of services that we offer. So definitely want you to be plugged in and registered. That gives us the information to be able to contact you, to send you the handbook. So if you're not sure if you're registered, email friends@parkpride.org and they can let you know and let you know how to register if you're not registered. Obviously, to be eligible, you need to be in a Park Pride service area. For community building grants, that's City of Atlanta or unincorporated DeKalb. For legacy, that's City of Atlanta, and all of our jurisdictions are eligible for the small change grants. All of our grant awards are given to capital projects, so maintenance, repairs, or programming requests are not eligible. So if something is broken, we're not going to pay to fix it. If you want to have an event in your park, that's not something that we can pay for. And the reason for that is that really the jurisdictions and the parks departments should be paying for those maintenance and repairs. And our program is really designed to help you all achieve your park dreams and change the park to meet the needs of your community. So that's where we want the dollars to go. Obviously, these changes are happening on public land that is owned by the City of Atlanta or DeKalb County. So they have to be aware of and supportive of what you're doing. We have good, close working relationships with the project managers in the City of Atlanta and DeKalb. Some access between all three of us. And that is something that we can definitely help you navigate during the process. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're having questions, if you're having trouble getting in touch with somebody, and we can help you learn how to navigate that. Successful completion of previous Park Pride projects. Obviously, it's important to us that when we provide a grant to your project that it gets finished, that you engage the community, and all of that. So we don't want to award multiple grants to a friends group if you haven't completed your previous projects. So for those of you that currently have an open Park Pride grant, it's got to be finished with all the funds spent and the final report submitted by October 1st for you to be eligible for a grant this year. And this year, first-time grant applicants can apply for up to $25,000. This is a pretty significant increase from $10,000 in previous years. And one of the reasons for that is that we think that some of you are going to be first-time grant applicants that are applying for those CDIA non-match grant funds, and you might not have applied before just because of that matching requirement. And so we wanted to increase that bar a little bit this year. The other thing is that construction is really expensive. And so we wanted to make sure that you guys are able to do meaningful projects, even if you are a first-time grant applicant. All right. So, a strong project, more than anything else, has a high level of community engagement. Park Pride's mission is engaging communities to activate the power of parks, and that is really our core mission, and this program is just a tool to do that. So that's the number one thing we look for. Support from the Parks Department, obviously that was on the previous slide. We want to understand why you need this and what value it will provide to your community. Our grants have timelines. Community building projects have to be completed within 12 months. And legacy projects have to be completed within 18 months. And that's partially dictated by our funders. They give we give to you, and if we're not able to spend all of the money that they give us within the timeline, then they might give us less. So it's important that we're able to execute all these projects within the given timeline. We want to make sure that the grant dollars are used effectively and we're able to stretch them as far as possible to make sure that your project is everything that it can be. The other thing we want to make sure is that the project is sustainable, that the Parks Department will be able to maintain it, and that your group is going to be actively involved in stewarding your park. We don't want you to just come into Park Pride, do a grant, and then leave. We want you to continue to stay engaged and engaged with your neighborhood and your park. So that's what a strong project looks like. And now I'm going to talk about how that translates to a strong application. So obviously, if anything missing, I will have to follow up with you, and we won't get all the information that we need. So that's the first thing. We ask for evidence of your community support. So there's a template on our website that has a little box for you to put in a project description, and then you can take that to your neighborhood association, you can take that to your NPU, and so that's a tool for you to tell more people about the project and see if they want to get involved and if they're supportive of it. Obviously, any project that we're funding, we want to make sure that it's representative of the community, that it's not just what one person wants and not what the broader team wants, because our goal really is to be a community-driven organization. So that's something that we look for. And that goes to the next point, clearly citizen-driven. We don't want to come in and tell you guys what you need because we don't know. And a lot of times the city doesn't always know. And so that's why this program exists, for you to be able to come to us, tell us what you want and need, and for us to help you make that happen. For the grants that do require a match, we want a plan of where that money is going to come from. Particularly now with COVID and with things looking kind of funny, you guys are going to be able to raise those funds and complete the project. So that's a piece of it. Obviously, if you're applying for one of the grants that doesn't require matching funds, that doesn't apply to you. So I'm going to stop quickly and see if there were any hands raised. I don't see any. Danielle, I see you asked a question in the chat. Art projects are a little funky, and if they're in City of Atlanta, have to go through the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. So please send me an email to elizabeth@parkpride.org. And that's actually raises a great point. If your grant project involves any sort of public art, you need support from the Parks Department and from Cultural Affairs. So in Atlanta, those are two different offices. In DeKalb, they're not. So that's one thing. Please get in touch with us a little bit earlier if your project incorporates public art so that we can help you navigate that. All right.
Jules has her hand up, so I'm going to unmute her.
Oh, yeah. Let me go back.
In reference to the matching, are we allowed to collect that money from anywhere? Are we allowed to have corporate sponsorship? Are we allowed to ask our employers to match our donations? Does that get funky legally, or is that also allowed?
No, so we definitely encourage you to get as many people bought in as you can. Obviously, the parks are going to go to because they're going to directly benefit, but absolutely, corporations, anybody that you can get who's interested is awesome. However, if you use Park Pride as your fiscal sponsor, so if you use our 501c3 to raise money, if those donations are coming to Park Pride, we want you to check in with us before you apply to any foundations or corporations, just because we don't want anything conflicting with relationships that Park Pride already has.
So in the event that we do get, say, like Home Depot wants to also help us, I mean, bad company choice. Sesame Street wants to help us, right?
Yes.
We just run it by you if we're fundraising under your umbrella. And then
just reach out to me and we can have a conversation about it. But yes, we absolutely encourage you guys to do outside fundraising.
Great, thank you.
fundraising, because we may go further. We want your dollars to do more, which is why this program was originally started. So yes, absolutely. I hope that answered your question. For specifics, definitely reach out to me and I can help you work through that. And so just to reiterate, the grants that do not require a match, your park has to be in a community development impact area. So, and that is defined as an area where 51% of the population or more makes less than 80% of the area median income. So 80% of, you know, the average of what everybody in that area makes. So it's really low or middle income neighborhoods. And I know that's a little bit confusing. So refer to the map to see whether or not you're in those areas. Moving on along, I've touched on this a little bit already based on the previous slides that we've talked about, but these are the reasons and the drivers behind our grant program. So we want to support communities. We want, like we said, you guys to tell us what you need, your community to get involved. We want this project to serve as something that brings your community together, that helps you meet neighbors that you haven't met before, that brings you together, that coalesces you around something, and where it results in this really great change and community gathering place. So we want your project to be something that's reflective of your specific needs and have engaged the broader community. Building off of that, we want to empower you to do this work. We want to give you new tools and ideas to engage your community and activate your park. So one of the changes that we're making to the program this year is that we are going to require grant applicants attend a community engagement workshop. And that's going to be led by Park Pride and an outside facilitator who specializes in this, because we don't always know what's best. We can bring in outside resources to help you. We are not the end all be all of what is right. And so we want to make sure that you all are participating in the process and doing what's best for your neighborhood. These projects also, we want it to deepen your relationship with us so that we can help you better. We want it to deepen your relationship with your government so that you can open that up to make them aware of what you need and what you want, and obviously deepen relationships with your neighbors. Finally, and this is sort of the traditional goal of the grant program, we want to leverage local investment and make dollars go farther. So this is the reason behind the traditional matching requirement. We want to double what you guys do. We want what you do to become bigger and to make affect bigger change. However, we do recognize that this presents a barrier for some folks, and that's why we've made the program change.
I just wanted to note that David has his hand raised.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Let me get to the end of the slide, and then if we can unmute. Thank you. So the matching funds don't have to all come from your community knocking on doors and asking people for investment. We try to work closely with our government partners to see where they are already spending money that we could use as a match, and expand the project. So if they're putting in a new playground, we want to get the community involved and figure out what else they want. Do you want fitness equipment? Do you want a pathway? And so then Park Pride will pay for additional elements to what your government is already doing to make it a project that's more reflective of your community. So we're going to continue doing that as well. David, did you have a question or thought? I don't know if I can unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my question was about, so.
Glad you're here.
What's that?
I said I'm glad you're here.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks. Good to see you too. My question was about the legacy grant. If we're looking at the legacy grant, and we are in a CDIA.
Mm-hmm.
So at the nature preserve is in the CDIA. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that the waiver was for 1/3 of the match. Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm sorry. That is a little bit confusing. So the entire match will be waived. You do not have to have any match. what I meant by that was out of our pool of legacy dollars, we are going to devote up to 1/3 of those dollars to that program. Does that clear that up?
Yeah, yeah. So in essence, if you're, I guess the grant, if you're looking for the maximum $100,000, you all of the match requirement would be waived.
Yes.
For CDI. Okay.
Yep.
All right. That clears it up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, this is a lot of numbers and new wording, so definitely ask questions if anything is unclear. I appreciate that. All right, were there any other questions? I don't see any hands. And Ellen, it looks like you're handling questions in the chat, so thank you for that. So the schedule this year. The letter that's handling legacy grants is going to be September 1st. So you've got a little bit over a month to start thinking about or continue thinking about what your project is going to be, to start or continue having those conversations with your government partners. We absolutely encourage you to start those conversations sooner rather than later, so that they can have their input, they can help you scope the project, give you an estimate of how much things are going to cost. They are a really key piece of this. So that's your runway to get your ideas. You don't have to have your budget. You don't have to have everything set in stone by that deadline. We just want to have an idea of the direction that you're going. After that, assuming that your project is a capital project, assuming that your project is in our area of eligibility, we're going to schedule a site visit. And those will happen in late September, early October, early mid-October through the month. We are hopeful that it will be cooler and that COVID will not be as much of an issue by then. So obviously, we will continue to look at the public safety, the mayor's phases of reopening, and make sure what we're doing is in line with those government recommendations. But I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to get outside and see you all. That's my favorite part of my job. So really, site visits are really so that we can get out and see the park. Just being in person is different and better than everything on a written application. At that time, we can also talk it through with you and give you some recommendations and assistance of how much that you want to, what you should apply for, different things that would strengthen your application between the time of the site visit and submitting the full thing. So those site visits are really a conversation between us. And those are attended by myself, by Allison, our associate director, sometimes by our government partners if they're available. And then we invite members of our grant review committee that are members of Park Pride's board. Some of them are not on the board, but and we love for them to get out and to see what you guys are doing and to meet you as well. But once we schedule those, we'll let you know who you can expect to be there. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is new this year. So make sure that you mark your date or this date on your calendars. September 16th, which is a Wednesday, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., just like this, we are going to host a community engagement workshop. This is going to be led by us and by Dr. Deetra Hawkins. Park Pride had engaged her to work with us as an organization on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she is absolutely wonderful. I'm confident that you guys will enjoy meeting her. So that we are thrilled that she is going to co-facilitate this and help you learn some new strategies to talk to your community and bring them in to your project. So that's going to be September 16th. Following the site visit, we will provide you with a recommendation of whether or not to submit the full grant, whether or not you're ready, and roughly how much to apply for, just so that you can sort of get an idea of the project scope and everything before you put your whole application package together. And the reason for that is that we don't want to waste your time. We don't want you to spend, you know, however long it takes for you to put the application together if your government partner isn't going to be supportive, or if you need to have a survey done, it would be better suited for you to wait another year. So we know that can be tough, but we really do that so that your time, we know you guys are volunteers and you do this after work and on the weekends, and it's hard to get everybody together. So we really want to be respectful of your time. So November 1st is the finish line in terms of the application process. We will announce awards in December 2020 or January 2021. We typically are able to announce them in December, but it will be one of those two. Anybody have any questions?
Chris has a question.
Oh, I see one. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Elizabeth. Yeah, quick question. And this just occurred to me just seeing this slide and processing some of the earlier stuff. So if now's not the right time, feel free to punt. But
Yeah.
if I recall last year, for certain grant request thresholds, there were different matching ratios that kicked in, like 2-to-1 if you requested over 100K. Is that still in place for this year, or just, yeah, curious what kind of the latest development there is?
Yeah, so the typical award size is up to $100,000. We have, in some cases, gone above that, and I'm going to expand a little bit for other experience that you do with the grant process. In select cases, we have gone above that $100,000 threshold for projects where we've been involved in the neighborhood for a long time. It's a really large scale project. And if we're going to make that special level of investment, we did typically like to see more investment from the community. So in the past, we have required a 2-to-1 match for grants that are over 100,000. I'm not sure if that is going to be quite as hard and fast of a rule this year, given COVID, given fundraising challenges in the economy. That's really going to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. That will depend on how competitive the cycle is, how many applications that we get. And obviously, if you are applying for one of those matching grants, the more the better. That just shows us that there are more people that want to see this project through, more people who are excited about it. So definitely keep pushing, but those are conversations that we will have on a one-on-one basis, because we know this year is a little crazy and different than the world that we usually live in. So we do understand that.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions before, so will the workshop with Deetra be virtual? I am anticipating that it will, yes. You know, in an ideal world, we would be back together and be able to do it in person, but I don't anticipate that being the case. Again, we will have to ask permission at the time of the workshop for it to be recorded. And we know, again, since we're only offering this at one time, that might be challenging. I want to make it clear that it just has to be someone from your Friends of the Park group attending. It doesn't have to be the same person that attended this. It doesn't have to be the same person that's writing the letter of intent. We know that this is a lot, and so we want you guys to get other people involved and to share the work. If you absolutely cannot make it, no one can make it, you can reach out to me and we can see what we can do. But we are really excited that we're able to bring in this outside facilitator and would love for all of you to be there. Will going to the Parks Department Design Committee be a part of the grant process? That is a great question. In order to get a letter of support from the City of Atlanta, you do have to present at those meetings. And so yes, that is still part of the process. For DeKalb, you don't have to go to one of those official meetings, but you do need to meet with your project manager. You do have to have all of those details fleshed out for them to issue a letter of support. You only need to have that letter of support in hand by November 1st. I will let you guys know that the park design and review meetings are only happening once a month now. And I believe it's the second Thursday of the month. It's on the website and I will send it to you with the PowerPoint. Still part of the process. And again, I really, really, really encourage you to start those conversations sooner rather than later. If the Parks Department says that's not feasible, or we're actually planning on doing that next year, we want to make sure that you have the time to pivot, incorporate their feedback. And ideally, you'd want to have had some conversations with them before you go to the park design and review meeting so that you're not caught off guard by anything. I don't see any other hands or questions. And we are going to do a Q&A at the end, but all of these are thoughts for me. So thank you guys. All right. So as we mentioned, the first step to apply for a Park Pride grant is to fill out the letter of intent. Last year, this is a little bit of a long word form that was a little bit of a nightmare to format. So I am very, very thrilled that this year, Kayla, can you let me know if people can see this correctly? I'm so bad at this Zoom screen sharing stuff. You look like you're nodding. Great. So the letter of intent form for community building and legacy grants is on our website. It is a web form. You don't have to deal with any of that word stuff. And then for City of Atlanta, if you click that, there are questions about whether you're in a CDIA area. This is a link.
It's not showing up.
Oh my gosh. How do I, thank you for letting me know.
No
Stop
worries.
sharing. And now I am going to try, can you see it now?
It's the CDIA map.
Yeah, okay. So if you click on that link, it will take you to our website, which has the letter of intent form for community building and legacy grants. If you are in the City of Atlanta, we will want to know if you are in one of those CDIA areas. And so the way that you can find out is to click on this map to the City of Atlanta GIS. And it actually looks like it did link with the filter on it, which is awesome. So this is the map, exactly what was on the PowerPoint. And to search for your park, you want to go ahead and use this drop-down menu to say parks. And then Jenny Drake, just of course there we go. There we go. And it will show you whether your park is in orange or not. So that is how you can figure it out. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. But excited that that form is online this year. Hopefully it works for everybody and is a little bit easier than what we have done in the past. Can everybody see the PowerPoint now, Kayla? Good, all right. Y'all, I'm really not good at this stuff. Thank you for your patience. So the letter of intent, the information that we're asking for is a little bit more streamlined as well. Again, we really want to remove barriers to people participating in this process. We don't want it to be too onerous. We don't want it to be too intimidating. And please always feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. I am on your team. I want you guys to put together really strong applications and to feel like all of your questions are answered and you're supported through the process. We should get involved. So hopefully you got some good tips on that from the breakout. After the letter of intent is when we're going to do the site visits. And I already touched on this a little bit, but really it's just an opportunity, hopefully for me to get out of my house, to come to your park, to meet you, to meet the other members of your Friends of the Park group, to see the park and understand how your proposed improvement will fit in, how it will benefit the community, and then if it's sustainable, if your budget is reasonable, and if you have a fundraising plan, if you need to have those matching funds. At the time of the site visit, I love to use that time to get to know you and to give you some pointers on how to put together a strong application. When those applications go to our grant committee, I want them to be as awesome as possible. So I am on your team. I'm here to help you. And so if you have any questions, we'd love to provide you guys feedback before the time of the application deadline, which is November 1st.
Elizabeth, I just wanted to let you know that the slides, if you wanted to share those, are not showing.
Y'all, I really, they should take my millennial card. Thank you, Kayla. Can you see them now? Okay, great. Thank God for Kayla. This would be a disaster if she weren't here. All right, so let me go back a little bit. Yeah, oops. So the site visit, that's that. After the time of the site visit, we will provide you a recommendation for whether or not you should apply and how much to ask for. If you are hoping to ask us for $1 million, we are going to say that is not reasonable. You probably shouldn't do that, and you should adjust your project accordingly. I said, if the city or county is like, actually, we're going to demolish this whole area and put in a rain garden or something in a year, we're not going to support you building a playground there. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page to go into an application if there's some sort of major issue. Okay. Moving along. Ellen, yes, I really want to see faces. I am a people person. This quarantine stuff is not my jam. All right, so the application. This is the time where you need to have all of your ducks in a row and you need to convince us to fund your project. So basically it's going to include all of the information in the LOI, but a little bit more and more detail. We want to have as much nailed down by this point as possible. So you're going to tell us about your Friends of the Park group. Have you been working in the park for 15 years? Did you just move in and you've gotten to meet a bunch of new people? What have you guys done to date? Have you done previous park improvement projects before? Is this your first one and you're really excited? Just let us know. In the project description, we want to know the who, what, where, when, and why. So what exactly are you going to do? Why do you need to do it? Who is going to help you? Where is it going to be? Where's your park and what part of the park is it going to be in? And how are you going to get it done? Are you going to hire a contractor? If so, have you gotten a quote from them? Is the city going to help you put it out to bid? Is the city going to do a portion of it, or are you going to do it all? All of these questions we love to have fleshed out, because if you're awarded a grant, we want you to be able to hit the ground running, have all these questions answered already, and be able to execute a really amazing project. The biggest thing that is a change in this year's application is that instead of detailing a fundraising plan, we really want you to detail a community engagement plan. Because like we said before, one of the main purposes of this program is for you to use this as a tool to get more people to care about your park. We know that you really do, and we don't want you to be the only one that's doing all of this work. So what have you guys done so far? What do you plan to do? Do you plan to set up a Facebook page? Do you plan to host a virtual public meeting to get input on your project? Do you plan to go to the NPU? All of these questions can go into this community engagement plan. Particularly because this is a new section of the application, please reach out to us if you have questions, if you want suggestions. We think the workshop with Deetra will give you some really great ideas. But this is the place where Ellen, Kayla, and I are really going to work together to support you. It's not going to be just me. So you have lots of people on your team there, but we know that you guys know what's best for your community. If your community is working full-time, you probably don't want to have a meeting during the day. If you've got older residents, you probably want to do some paper flyers rather than just Zoom and Facebook where they might not find out about it. So really think about what's about your neighbors and what's going to be best for them. The project budget. Even if you're applying for a grant that doesn't need matching funds, we need to have a good idea of what it's going to cost. We don't want to give you a $50,000 grant, the contractors get started, and then it ends up being $75,000 and you have no place to come up with that extra 25. At that point, all of our grant funds are allocated, we can't help you, and then the project can't be finished. And that's really like the thing we don't want. So we really encourage you guys to work with your city and county project manager. They can go to the contractors that they work with. You can go to your own contractor, but definitely want to make sure you run it by the city or county and it's an approved contractor that they've done work together before. So this is probably the biggest collaborative process and might be the most challenging for you, but we really like to have those detailed nailed down, because in our experience, we found if we don't have the details nailed down on the front end, then the project is just not as successful. So if you have any questions about that, please let us know. The contact information for your city, county project manager will be on the website, but we are happy to have those conversations with you, help you figure out what questions you need to ask. That's really the role of Park Pride, is to help you guys get involved with your government. So that's the project budget. That's a really important part of the application. If you are applying for a grant that requires match, we do want to know your fundraising plan. And the next slide, I believe, yeah. So the project budget spreadsheet has two different tabs. One is the project budget. You list how much everything's going to cost. Site prep, $20,000. Community or playground equipment, $50,000, etc. On the fundraising plan, that's where you list money that you think you're going to get. So if you're asking for $50,000 from Park Pride, you would list Park Pride and put that in the anticipated source of funding. You do not have that funding in your hand yet. If you have already raised $10,000 from your neighborhood, you would put XX Friends of the Park group and $10,000 in the secured funding column. And we want to make sure that the money that you think you're going to raise, plus any money that you're asking for from Park Pride, will enable you to finish the whole project. Again, the worst case scenario is you starting a project that you can't afford to finish. And then the timeline. Like I said before, community building grants have to be completed within a year. Legacy is 18 months, and we want to make sure that it's a project that's feasible for you to finish in that time. If you're working with the city, has the city already issued the PO? Do they have the budget for it this year or next year? Like, we just want to figure out where everything is and make sure that that is here, because this is the meatiest slide, I think. So I don't see any hands up, and I think everybody's good in the chat. So I'm going to move on. We're also close to the Q&A. So if anything pops up, we will have time. All right. So the project budget. This, again, is the piece that tends to be the most challenging. I have reworked this budget spreadsheet numerous times, and it still tends to be confusing. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. That does not mean that you are not going to get a grant. I'm here to help you. This is an Excel spreadsheet, so if you don't have Excel, let us know and we can figure out another solution to that as well. So this top part is what the project costs look like. And we only want you to include hard costs. So don't include the cost of your time to write the grant. Only things that are really going towards the physical building of the park improvement. So if you're buying trees, if you are doing tree planting, what is the value of that work? How much is your playground going to cost? All of those things. So the budget sheet is pretty straightforward. And if you're getting an estimate from the contractor for the whole project, that's what you put there, and you can upload that in your supporting documentation. The fundraising plan obviously will only be required for those grants that have matching funds or looking for matching funds. Again, we want to put secured and anticipated. We like for you guys to have the bulk of your matching funds raised up front. It's okay. We know that you guys will still be working on fundraising once the grant is awarded. Obviously, any funding from Park Pride is anticipated. You don't know for sure whether or not you're going to get that. And then there's a column on both for you to say whether or not it's an in-kind donation. Obviously, for the grant, we want to make sure that between what you have in hand and what you think you're going to get, it's going to be able to pay for the project that you have budgeted for. So the number here, which is going to be auto-calculated for the total project fund, which is the total of the secured bed, equals or exceeds what the project costs. And so if you have volunteer labor, it's got to be budget relieving for the project. So if your volunteers are planting flowers in one end of the park, but the playground is being built in the other end, that's not really budget relieving for the project. You'll still have to pay for somebody to install the playground, and that doesn't decrease your overall budget. However, if volunteers are going to plant trees around the playground to give it some shade, and you would have had to pay a contractor to do that, that is absolutely an in-kind donation project budget. If you have any questions about what counts or what doesn't count, let me know. So that kind of in-kind volunteer labor will be on both your budget and your fundraising plan. So this year, the 2020 value of volunteer time is $27.20 an hour, which is awesome. That's a lot of money in my opinion. That was just published this year. It's an increase from last year. And so if your neighbors are getting together and doing some volunteer work, you'll multiply the number of people times the number of hours times that value. If a contractor or somebody is providing a skilled service, like if one of your neighbors is a landscape architect that's doing the project development and they charge $1,000 an hour, you can do $1,000 an hour as the in-kind donation. So again, I'm gonna stop there. Any questions about what I just covered? Because this can be the trickiest part. And if you have ideas on how to make this spreadsheet more user-friendly, let me know. I am all ears. All right, doesn't look like there's anything, which is good. That means I'm giving you the information that you need, but if I'm not, let me know. All right, for those of you that have to raise matching funds, we encourage you to raise funds from the park users and your Friends of the Park group. If you are using Park Pride as your fiscal sponsor, those donations will come to us. We can hold those. And then if you receive a grant and we're paying a vendor, we can send one check to the vendor that pulls money from your grant dollars and money from your fiscal sponsorship account at once. So that makes all the accounting later, investing Park Pride as your fiscal sponsor. You can also use our fiscal sponsorship to apply to grants from foundations or corporations. Again, we do need that approval in advance, and particularly during grant season, since I am the person doing both of those, please give me some lead time to review that, to have a conversation with you, a conversation with our development team. So give me like at least 3 weeks to review those before the grant deadline. If you send it to me 48 hours in advance, I might not get to it, and I am sorry, and I don't want that to happen. So please give me some time. Money that your government is spending. If you're planning on your project in your park and you want to plug into that, you can use that as your matching funds. In-kind donations, if your neighbor landscape architect is helping, if you guys are planting trees, that counts. The big thing with your matching funds is that they have to be spent on the same project as your Park Pride grant. So in the example that I gave before, if the city's putting in a playground and you want to expand that project to add some fitness equipment that parents can use while they're watching their kids on the playground, that totally counts. That's the same project. If the Department of Watershed is putting a rain garden in one end of the park and you want to put in a swing set on the other end of the park, those projects aren't really related. So again, that can be kind of subjective. So reach out to me if you have any questions about what counts as match and what doesn't count as match. We definitely want you guys to be clear as you're going through the process on what counts so that you aren't surprised when you submit the application and you hear back from us. If funds are raised for the park, can they be held by the nonprofit neighborhood association? Absolutely. Funds do not have to be held by Park Pride to count as the match. The only benefit to that, again, is we can pay the contractor at once. You can hold them in a bank account for your Friends of the Park group. You can hold them in your neighborhood association account. However, you do have to provide proof to us that the match has been spent. We're not just going to take your word for it that you paid $5,000 for this and now you want $5,000 from us. So make sure that you keep a record of what you're paying for, invoices, all of that. We need that accounting for our auditors and to make sure that everything that we're doing is above board. You'll also have to do that kind of accounting for any other grant that you apply for. So we think that this is really good experience for you guys. It's also transparency for your Friends of the Park group. They know what the money's being spent on. So just all around a good idea to keep track of things. Is there a limit to how much in-kind donations can count toward the match? This year, no. And actually last year we waived this requirement as well. It's becoming increasingly difficult to have donations from your neighbors, particularly after COVID. So there is no cap. However, we don't want you guys to do the bare minimum. The goal of this program is to help you guys gain skills, push yourselves. Allison always says when the grant program first started and they were matching awards of $100, neighbors would say, there's no way we can raise $100. But then with some of the tools that we provided, going out there and actually trying, They did, and now the grant program has grown a lot, and $200,000, $1 million, and that is awesome. We want you guys to grow, and I think you will amaze yourselves with what you're able to do. So yes, no limit on matching funds, but we want to see, particularly if you're going for a grant that does require a match, we are going to want some cash in there. We want you guys to be fundraising. So again, a little bit subjective, but just keep having conversations with me and I will be open with you about where you are. I think that's all the questions that we have on that slide. And again, we like to provide you guys with resources that will help you. So this year, the annual fundraising workshop has been expanded. Our Director of Marketing and Communications is going to join as well, because we're living in a increasingly digital world, even more so than I would have imagined back in January. So we want to give you guys some tools on that as well. This workshop is going to be hosted on Saturday, December 5th. If you want to put that date in your calendar, of course, it's open to groups whether you have for a grant. It's not just about fundraising for your park. Obviously, that's our focus, but just in general, providing you guys with information that will be useful to you. All right, we're almost done. So if you receive a grant from Park Pride, these are what we're going to expect of you. And we want you guys to know that going into it, because if you don't think that this is something that you can commit to, we don't want to waste your time going all the way through the process. So that's why we make all of this clear up front. The community engagement workshop, which again is new, we're going to have a co-facilitator, is going to be required. You do not have to be the one attending, just somebody from your Friends of the Park group, September 16th from 6 to 7:30. That's a Wednesday evening, just like this. If you've received a grant before, you know that you have to sign a grant agreement with us. That says we, Park Pride, are going to do these things. We're going to give you this amount of money for this project. And it says things on your behalf. We're going to contribute this amount of matching funds. We are going to submit reports by the state. But this year, there's going to be a new section on community engagement. This is a section that you and your Friends of the Park group are going to write. Again, you know what is best for your community or best for your community. Every neighborhood in the city of Atlanta. I don't know all of your neighbors as much as I would love to. So you guys know what's best. But again, we want you to push yourselves. We want you to get more people involved and supportive of the project. So you're going to come up with a community engagement plan that you're going to commit to doing in that signed grant agreement. Of course, just like with the community engagement plan and the application, we are happy to help. This is new for us as well. We're really excited to see what you guys come up with. I guarantee that you're going to have some ideas that I haven't had before. Get a brochure, and we're going to want to make sure that you guys are really actively doing that community engagement. Something else to see this year. All of our grantees, community building, legacy grant, match, no match, you're going to be grouped into cohorts. Again, we don't know everything. There are a lot of you, and we can't always answer all your questions. We don't have all that experience. I have experience in giving grants. I don't have experience in going to my neighbors and asking for money for my park. So you're going to be grouped into cohorts so that you can share experiences, just like the breakouts. This is something we've heard from our Friends of the Park groups that y'all really want. So this is, we're trying to respond to that. So you're going to be grouped into small cohorts. You can meet anywhere from 3 to 6 times per year. You can decide that with your group. So anywhere from quarterly to every 2 months. Obviously, if you want to meet more than that, that's fine. But we know that you guys are volunteers. We don't want to ask for every spare second of your time. And so, yeah, you're just going to support each other. You're going to hold each other accountable. And you can have the option to have us in the room to provide advice, or you can not. You can be like this. You can have us not in the room and say, this part of the process is really hard and I don't know why they do it this way. And that's totally fine. We are constantly learning as well. We want you guys to learn from each other and we want to learn from you. So cohorts, that is going to happen this year. This has been the case in the past. Obviously, if I email you, if I call you to figure out where you are, I want to hear back from you. I want to hear back from somebody in your friends of the park group. Change that process a little bit rather than me just checking in with everybody periodically. It's going to be me and somebody from the community building team. So we're going to check up on your project implementation, your fundraising, but also your community engagement. And they're really the experts in that. And that will be the opportunity for you to say, this isn't going as I expected. How can you help? Or we are having a project delay because the weather's been really bad and the contractors can't get on site. That's all great information for us to know. So that is that. These are the requirements. There's a question. What % of applications get funded typically? I cannot really answer that question for a couple different reasons. So when people submit the LOI, if it's for a project that they're not eligible for, I'll tell you not to do a site visit. From the site visit, there are some people, for all the reasons I said before, that we may say, don't submit a full application. Other people that submit applications, at that point, we've told you whether or not to apply. We've told you how much to apply for. Obviously, there are no guarantees at that point. But if you've made it to that point, I think you've got a strong project and want you to present your case to our grant committee. Every year, the amount of funding that we are asked for changes. Last year, we were asked for the most money and the most applications that we had ever had. And so last year, we had to make some tough calls. I honestly can't totally predict what this year is going to look like. Because of COVID, y'all have a lot of competing priorities. There are competing priorities for fundraising. So I just don't know. The one thing I can tell you is that I will be honest with you throughout the process. And if I think your project is not going to be funded, if I'm confident about that, I'm going to let you know so that you don't go to it. I know that doesn't exactly answer your question, but I hope that that was somewhat helpful. What time period for volunteer hours is acceptable? I don't know that I totally understand that question. Do you mean like when are we going to say that it's okay to do volunteer projects because of COVID, or like when do they need to be completed to count towards the grant? Again, sort of like those matching funds, they need to be for that specific project. So they need to be volunteer days, like roughly within the year. So if you did a project, you know, maybe in February to remove some invasive species where a project is going to go, that would count. If you did a volunteer day to paint some signs, that would not count. So, Margot, why don't you send me an email or call me after this? I'm not totally clear what your question is. But going forward, as long as your volunteer project is for the same project as what you're applying for a grant for, yes, that would count. So if you did a project tomorrow and it was towards the same project, that would count. Good, looks like I answered your question. So requirements to release grant funds. We started doing this last year. Obviously, we need to have your signed grant agreement before we're gonna pay anything out. We also want you guys to write a press release. This is another tool of community engagement to say, hey, pride, and we need to raise our matching funds, or we want your input about what this project is going to look like. It's a great way to get people really excited, and you already have a win at that point. So we love to see that. We like you guys to submit those press releases to us, our Director of Marketing and Communications. We'll sign off on it, and I will insert a quote telling you how wonderful you are. So that's to release the initial grant funds. For matching grants, this goes back to the piece about the accounting that I talked about. You need to show us, oh my gosh, we're running so late on time. I'm sorry. You guys need to show us that you have raised and spent the money because we don't want to get out ahead of you. For the final grant funds to say forward, and in the past we've told people to coordinate ribbon cuttings. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like this year, but we want you to celebrate, and we want to celebrate with you. So I think that's the Q&A. For all of you that have stuck around, I am long-winded and I am sorry, but hopefully I addressed most of your questions as you were going. Raise your hand, put questions in the chat. Who would I contact to find out what funds our government has set aside for projects at our park. So you would reach out to your project manager, either in City of Atlanta or DeKalb. If you live in DeKalb, you would reach out to your DeKalb County Commissioner. In City of Atlanta, you can also reach out to your city council person. I will say, don't approach those questions or conversations with an expectation. You want this person to relationship with you, really start to care about your park, and it takes a little bit of time to build that trust and build that relationship. Particularly during the time of COVID, public budgets and parks budgets have shrunk. And so people don't have the same amount of money that they did, and they have a lot of competing priorities. This is a pretty stressful time right now. So you don't want to go to somebody and say, hey, I need this much money, and if you don't give it to me, I'm going to vote you out of office. That's not really the right approach. So I would definitely say, reach out to the county project manager first before you start knocking down the doors of your elected officials, and they can sort of help you navigate that process. And those contact information will be on the grant page of our website. In City of Atlanta, it is Erin Weiner in the Office of Park Design, and in DeKalb County, it is Paige Singer. Both are really wonderful people that are doing the jobs of at least 5 people. So give them some time to respond to you. Reach out to us if you don't hear back from them, because we're in touch with them pretty regularly, and we can help you with that. Any other questions before we just do a couple brief announcements? Dave Davis, you have a hand raised. Can I unmute you, or is that just Ellen or Kayla? I cannot.
Yeah. Can you tell me who you said the project manager for the City of Atlanta was? You said it was Diane, but their phone kind of went funny.
Sorry, it is Erin Weiner in the Office of Park Design.
Gotcha. Okay.
Our good friend Erin. So.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. And again, they are doing a lot of work right now. So give them some time to respond. If you don't hear, follow up. And if you repeatedly don't hear, let us know and we can help. We're in touch with them regularly. And so we can just shoot them a list of questions on our regular touch points. All right. I don't think I see any other questions. I'm sure some of you are going to run. So thank you so much for attending. We are going to do a post poll. This will help me figure out whether or not this was helpful to you. And I want to know what's like the grant cycle. What would be most helpful to you? Obviously, I don't want to be doing things that are not helpful. And if there's some new idea of something that you think would make this a lot easier for you, let us know. You guys are the ones doing the work. You guys are what makes it fun to come to work. So we so appreciate everything that you do, particularly right now. Life is really hard right now, and everyone has a lot going on. So the fact that all of you, all 60, however many people of you came today, is amazing. You guys are fantastic. And so we just want to be a support to you. So thank you everybody for coming. I hope this was helpful. Please reach out to me. Again, I am on your team. I want to be helpful to you. My email address is elizabeth@parkpride.org. This is my cell number. Send me, call me, leave me a voicemail, send me a text. I am a millennial in that respect. I like texts. I don't like Zoom, but I like texts. And I plan on hosting some virtual office hours where we can have a one-on-one chat about your project. I can answer any questions specific to you. I did those in person last year, but at least I'll be able to see your face. So excited about that. We have a couple brief announcements, but again, thank you guys so much for coming. We love you. You're wonderful. So I'm going to proceed with the announcements. If you live in the City of Atlanta, the City of Atlanta is doing a 10-year master plan for parks and recreation. This is going to affect what they prioritize over those next 10 years, how they're going to implement what you want, whether or not they're going to implement what you want. And Park Pride is doing the public engagement for this. So we want to hear your voices. Visit activateatl.com, take the survey, share it on your Facebook page, your Friends of the Park listserv. The first wave of public meetings is over, but there's going to be a second one. We want to make sure your voices are heard. This is the best opportunity to tell your Parks Department what you want. So if you're in City of Atlanta, definitely do that. Also, we have our Parks and Green Space Conference. This was supposed to be in March. And man, back in February, we had a hard time deciding whether or not we were going to postpone it or not. And that feels crazy and like world away. But this conference is going to be fully virtual. We've got this cool platform that's going to have a sponsored gallery. We're going to have live presentations. We're going to have breakouts. We're going to have Q&As. It's going to be great. I am very excited about it. Don't worry. I am not running the technology, and neither is Kayla, actually. We've got some professionals that are helping us, so it should be awesome. If you're interested in attending, email friends@parkpride.org, and they can help you out. Annie, we are not delivering lunch. I wish we were. I wish we could all sit outside at the Botanical Garden and eat together. Yeah, you were hilarious. Great question. So please attend our conference. We will all be there. Our staff has worked really hard on it, especially transitioning this to virtual and all of that. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for hanging on for the announcements. Again, that's my contact information. Our email addresses are first name at parkpride.org, so you can reach Kayla@parkpride.org, Ellen@parkpride.org, et cetera, et cetera. We are so excited to get to know you a little bit better, work with you throughout this process. And I'm looking forward to giving away some money this year. So thank you all for coming and for your interest and for everything you do for your park.